Hi there, in this video we're going to look at something called levels. It's the thing I do the most in Photoshop. I open up an image and I sharpen up the blacks and the whites. Ready, steady, cool. Here's another example, looks good, and then bam, looks better. All we're doing is making the blacks and the whites super strong using something called levels. Let's go and do it now in Photoshop. All right, let's get started. So from your exercise files, go to File, Open. And we're working in our exercise files and we're going to be using O2 color. So double click to go inside there. Inside another example, looks good, and then bam, looks better. All we're doing is making the blacks and the whites super strong using something called levels. Let's go and do it now in Photoshop. All right, let's get started. So from your exercise files, go to File, Open. And we're working in our exercise files and we're going to be using O2 color. So double click to go inside there. Inside another example, looks good, and then bam, looks better. All we're doing is making the blacks and the whites super strong using something called levels. Let's go and do it now in Photoshop. All right, let's get started. So from your exercise files, go to File, Open. And we're working in our exercise files and we're going to be using O2 color. So double click to go inside there. Inside another example, looks good, and then bam, looks better. All we're doing is making the blacks and the whites super strong using something called levels. Let's go and do it now in Photoshop. All right, let's get started. So from your exercise files, go to File, Open. And we're working in our exercise files and we're going to be using O2 color. So double click to go inside there. Inside another example, basically you drag them to the kind of first hump. Okay, so halfway up the first little hump here, and you'll notice that if I turn my preview on and off, okay, so my levers layer here, turn the eyeball on and off, it just really sharpens up the shadows or the dark parts. Same with the other side, grab the white, drag it to the left, and how far do you drag it? Basically just halfway up the first hump. Or at least until you feel like it's looking good, okay? There's no like absolute science here, it really depends on your image. But that's the really good place to start. Drag the both ends in until they're halfway up the hump, and often it'll fix your image. There's no specific way to drag it. It just depends on your image. So I can drag it to the left and it lightens it up, and drag it to the right and it darkens it up. So it really depends where you want it to be. I'm just dragging it back and forth, looking at my image until I find something that I like. Remember, turn the eye on and off. Have I made it better? Have I made it worse? Okay, it's better. It's pretty oversaturated, it's pretty sharp. And that, my friends, is how levels work. And it is the thing I do most often when I open up an image, especially if it's something I've taken myself, and it's a way to kind of really get the rich blacks and the pure whites. And what Photoshop has done is that it's put it on a layer that I can turn on and off. So later on I can come back to this and either make adjustments, okay, or just turn it off and go back to the original. It's very quick, it's very easy. What you're going to do now is a little exercise. Go to File, go to Open, and there's one in there called Levels 2. Now what I've done throughout this course is that if there's ones that I've taken from a website called Unsplash, Unsplash is a cool website for commercial use images that you don't have to pay for. Okay, the only thing that they require is that you leave the artist's name and where it came from. So that's what I'm doing. So this one here came from a paid stock library site. They don't require it. I paid to use it. This one here I didn't pay for, but Matthew Hamilton and his amazing photography just needs to be credited here. Anyway, so open up Levels 2, click Open, go through the same process here. Go to your adjustments panel, find levels, drag the hills in from both sides, the center slider, try left and right depending on what you're looking for, and that will give you some practice with the most common thing to do in Photoshop, in my opinion. And in my current opinion, it is time to get on to the next video. All right, see you over there. Hey there, in this video, we're looking to enhance colors. I hate saying the word make colors pop, but that's kind of what we're doing. We're just trying to kind of like lift some of the colors. So we're gonna take this image that we've been working on and ready, just kind of richen it up, especially the background stuff. This image here, ready, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, colors are definitely enhanced and maybe some popping going on. Now this technique is, after levels, is one of the first things I do. So step 2 in my fixing up my images is levels first, which we did in the previous video, and then I look at vibrance just to kind of lift and raise some of the colors without going too far. We might have gone a little too far in this image, but that's okay. Let's learn how to do it now in Adobe Photoshop. All right, to get started, we're going to open up two files from that same folder called O2 Color. I've got open Vibrance 01 and Vibrance 02. Vibrance 02 is from Malvista. Tira magazine. Great, so we're going to have vibrance 1 to start with. And what we're going to do is, in our adjustments panel, we're going to use this one here. It looks like a kind of a V with a gradient in the middle. It's the vibrance adjustment. Click on that. Now I just mentioned that vibrance is a good replacement for saturation in most cases. Okay, so if you have dabbled in Photoshop before and you use the hue and saturation slider, okay, saturation is fine, but vibrance is definitely better. Why is vibrance better, in my opinion? Vibrance, what it does is it looks at the image, okay, and let's say the shoes are quite red already. Okay, but this kind of colored boards in the background are quite washed out. So what vibrance does is, watch this, if I drag up saturation to the top, kind of to get this really blue color in the background here kind of popping, this red has to be oversaturated, okay, and gets too much. So I'm going to turn that back to 0. What happens with vibrance is, watch this, when I drag this up, you'll notice that the blue in the background gets better, but it leaves the already saturated colors alone. So it's just generally just a really good, I don't normally drag it up this high. I've got this example just because we've been using it already. Let's have a look at the Vibrance 02. Okay, so same thing. I've got to my adjustments panel, I'm gonna go to the vibrance, and watch what happens when I drag up the saturation. It kind of, like, I'm going way too high, right? I'm going all the way up to 100, but you'll see the greens start getting quite strong and the blues come out of here. Let's go down, up, down, up. Okay, but the problem is these colors that already had quite a strong color in them, okay, they start becoming kind of, I don't know, surreal or hyperreal, just a bit too saturated. So let's leave this here and crank up this vibrance, and you'll notice that the greens are the leaves. You might not notice, so I've got it up to 100 and I'm going to turn the eyeball on and off. You'll notice that like the blue in here really came on strong, which is cool. And the leaves got a warmer kind of green in there, but you'll notice the bag down here, or at least the colors in here in the, I'm going to call it a scarf, they get a little bit more, but not as much as these. So it's more like the already saturated colors just get a little tweak, and the ones that are just quite weak in terms of their color saturation can get it lifted up, okay, to match some of those more saturated colors. All right, that is going to be it for vibrance. You can use both of them, vibrance and saturation, to go completely overboard. But that is it. All right, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, vibrance. Hi there. In this video, we're going to change the color of stuff. Okay, so we're going to change it green and make it pink, and then actually pick any color we like. Same with this one here. We've got red shoes and ready, green shoes. All right, it's super quick, it's super easy. We're going to use the hue and saturation adjustment panel. Let's do it now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, let's open up two files. They're in the same color folder we've been working in. Open up Hue 01 and Hue 02. Okay, with Hue 01 open, let's go to Adjustments. And to change the color, we use this one called Hue and Saturation. Click on him. And what we want to do is under Hue, okay, this hue slider here, grab this little, I call it a little house, white house. Okay, a little arrow thing there, click it, hold it and drag it left. And slowly but surely, see the colors updating. Come on. Okay, drag it all the way to the right as well. Okay, that'll get you through your full range of colors available. And one thing you might do is I'm going to pick any sort of color here. Okay, and the other one you might play around with is saturation. Okay, so they say the color's not quite, poppy enough for you. Click, hold, and drag it up a little bit. I'm going to max mine out. Okay, it goes a bit too high, but you can kind of see I can just raise it up a little bit. Cool. And I want you to do the same thing for, this is the one we worked on earlier for levels. Okay, Hue 02. Do the same thing. Open up Hue and Saturation, drag it around, see if you can change the color. Nice and easy and fun. Just a little side note here is I've worked on a few jobs where I've been in charge of photographing, say, a product. Let's say it was glasses. Okay, so we photographed, there was the same style but a range of colors. So what we did is what everyone does is that you photograph kind of one of them. Okay, say we pick the color red and we photograph it. We get the right angles and we try a few things with lighting. We get it right. And instead of, you know how when you're on Amazon or eBay and you're going through the different color options and somehow magically that shirt or those glasses, they're in the exact same position but different colors. And you're like, how did they line those up and photograph them all perfectly? They didn't. Okay, it was somebody like me who went, yeah, let's just do one. And later on in Photoshop, I'll go and adjust them. And yeah, I sat there with the glasses and went, yeah, the blue color. And then I grabbed the slider and went, yeah, with the blue color. And I'll be looking at the glasses in my hand and looking at the Photoshop and going, yeah, it's close enough. Okay, and it was that. It's like, I feel like it's a confession. Okay, but yeah, that's, you know, that's the easy and quick way. You know, color matching is super hard regardless, you know, lighting and stuff affect it. And if you, like me, had no budget and just needed to get them done, it's a quick and easy way to adjust the hue. All right, so practice with Hue 02, and I will see you in the next video where we start looking at selectively adjusting the hue. I'll explain more in the next video. Hi there, the name of this video is pretty much a giveaway. We're gonna turn colorful images into black and white images. But the cool thing is we're gonna have lots of control about how it goes black and white. Same with this one, black and white it, okay, color, black and white. We're even gonna add a tint to recolor it. All right, exciting times. Let's get into it in Photoshop. Okay, so to get started, let's file open. And let's open up two files from the color folder. It's called black and white. There is an 01 and an 02. We'll start with 01. Now there's a few ways in Photoshop to make things black and white. The best way, in my opinion, is under adjustments. There's a slider here. Okay, this one here called black and white. Second row down, third one in. Click on that. Again, it's this non-destructive layer, which is cool because you can turn it on and off. And up here, okay, depending on what you last did, okay, you might set it back to default and it's made it black and white. Now, what's cool about this is that it is adjustable. So if I turn this eyeball off, you'll see that this is kind of considered reds, right? But let's say when I convert it to black, it's this gray, but say I want it to be darker. The reds I can drag this way. You can see you can kind of like, you got more control about it going black and white rather than going full black and white and then trying to fix it with something like levels. You've got this kind of full control here. So you just go through and decide like how you want this thing to do. So let's say I find that too dark. So I'm just gonna raise the reds. Okay, I want this color here. What color is it? It is like a cyan. So I'm gonna grab the cyan and try and make it lighter. I'm trying to make it a little bit more monochromatic, I guess. So you just work your way through until you find something you're happy with. Now, one little tip for you is this option here. Okay, if you hover above it, you've got this kind of full control here. So you just go through and decide like how you want this thing to do. So let's say I find that too dark. So I'm just gonna raise the reds. Okay, I want this color here. What color is it? It is like a cyan. So I'm gonna grab the cyan and try and make it lighter. I'm trying to make it a little bit more monochromatic, I guess. So you just work your way through until you find something you're happy with. Now, one little tip for you is this option here. Okay, if you hover above it, you've got this kind of full control here. So you just go through and decide like how you want this thing to do. So let's say I find that too dark. So I'm just gonna raise the reds. Okay, I want this color here. What color is it? It is like a cyan. So I'm gonna grab the cyan and try and make it lighter. I'm trying to make it a little bit more monochromatic, I guess. So you just work your way through until you find something you're happy with. Now, one little tip for you is this option here. Okay, if you hover above it, you've got this kind of full control here. So you just go through and decide like how you want this thing to do. So let's say I find that too dark. So I'm just gonna raise the reds. Okay, I want this color here. What color is it? It is like a cyan. So I'm gonna grab the cyan and try and make it lighter. I'm trying to make it a little bit more monochromatic, I guess. So you just work your way through until you find something you're happy with. Now, one little tip for you is this option here. Okay, if you hover above it, you've got this kind of full, running at like video 10. So now we've got ink and water. And what we're going to do, the same thing as before, we can just adjust these, okay? But it's probably easier to click on this and say, because you see there's like two main colors in this ink splodge thing. Okay, so I'm gonna turn them on and you can just kind of start dragging. And let's say I wanna make it everything darker, so I'm just dragging it to the left, okay? And it just kind of picks what colors. Okay, work around. Maybe a bit too dark down here. Okay, so that on art dragger thing is pretty cool. I turn it off. The thing I wanted to show you was this thing here called tint. We kind of looked at something called colorize when we did hue and saturation. This thing here works the exact same way. It's just a handy way of doing it. Black and whiting it in one color and going to tint. And this color here is the color it's been applied. So it's got this sepia old world color now. I can click on this and you can pick any color you like. So you drag this hue slider up and down to find the kind of color range you want. Let's say I want kind of a warm pink. Click OK. And now when I go to my little on art slider here, I'm going to decide to drag it so it's just a bit brighter. Cool, huh? So it's a good way of, you're meant to be using it just to tint it, but we've totally colorized this thing here. So there's the extra little tip. And that is it. Black and whiting is pretty easy. You get a bit of control, a little bit of extra adjustment with this little slider, and you can tint it if you need to. And always, it's non-destructive, so this thing is just underneath, ready to go. You can delete this layer by clicking it, and see this little trash can down here? You can delete him. I'm super happy with myself, so I am going to leave it here, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Hey there, it is gradient time, and what we want to do is this image here, we've added this cool retro kind of style gradient. I'm going to show you how to do that now in Adobe Photoshop. Let's go. First up, let's open up two images. Okay, it's in the same color folder. It's called Gradient 01 and Gradient 02 from Jordan Andrews. Thank you, Jordan. So we're going to start with Gradient 01. We're going to do two things. We're going to add gradient to text, and we're going to add it to the image in the background. We'll do the text first, as it's the easiest to do. Okay, so we're going to have a full section on doing type a little bit later in the course, but for now, click on this capital T, your type tool, click once on your keyboard, okay, and over here, in terms of the font size, pick a font, any font you like, okay, and a size, I've got mine up to about 80, okay, yours is probably defaulting to 10 or 12, and over here, okay, we're going to type in all. I'm going to put a return in, start. Don't worry too much about type at the moment. To move your type around, we're going to use our move tool, okay, and I'm just going to click and drag it around. So adding a gradient to this, changing the color of the font's easy. You can double click it here, pick a new font, but let's look at adding a color. Okay, to do it, you need your text layer selected. There's mine. It's got the gray box around it. And down the bottom here, there's one called Effects, and there's one in here called Gradient Overlay. Now what you'll find in Photoshop is that pretty much true of everything you do in Photoshop. There's like 3 or 4 different ways of doing the same thing. What I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to give you, I guess, like there's about 3 different ways of applying gradients. This way I feel like is the most bulletproof in terms of future proofing. Just means it's going to work probably on most circumstances, whereas some of the other gradients don't work in all cases. Anyway, what I'm saying is that later on you might go, hey, why didn't he show me that version of this thing? And you like it better. It's totally cool. Do it. If you stumble across a different way of doing something, totally. There's nothing right or wrong about it. I'm just trying to, I guess, cut it down to the most usable versions. So gradient overlay. And by default, it'll depend on what you last had selected. Now, what we're going to do is where it says gradient, click on this little arrow here. Let's move them up so we can kind of see. Click on this little drop down arrow. By default, you've got some horrific drop shadows. Okay, well, gradients, sorry. Okay, some terrible ones. If you need rainbow colored gradients, you, my friends, are all in luck. Okay, so what we're going to do is have to go and customize it. So let's start with this first one, black to white. It's the easiest one to customize. Let's click on the little arrow to pop it back up. So what we want to do now is change the colors used. And you do it by clicking in this color bit here. That's why it's a little bit confusing using gradient overlay. Okay, so you click on this anywhere in this color box, this thing pops up. Okay, and what we're going to do is use the bottom parts of these houses. Okay, so not the top parts, use this bottom bit. So let's double click this first color swatch. Okay, and using this hue slider, drag it up, drag it down, find a color that you want to use. Okay, I'm going to use this one, click OK. Double click this white house. Same thing, drag this hue slider up and down until you find a color you want to use, then click in here. Okay, and you'll have that blue to purple, or at least magenta. Click OK. Well, let's click OK again and have a look at some of the settings. So where it says reverse, just flips it top to bottom. We are using the linear style, so it goes in a line from top to bottom. You can adjust that, which angle. Okay, you can see now it's going kind of more left to right from this side to this side. You can decide any size. Linear, you can play around with radial, and you can experiment on your own, the different ones, angle, reflection, they're just kind of different ways. You can see the gradients are on both sides. We're just going to go for linear in this case. And in terms of the scale, you can lower it down, it makes a bit more sense. And then it's just got like only a tiny little gradient between these type here. Cool, I'm gonna leave mine at 100%. That's what yours is probably set to. Now, before we do the images, I'm gonna show you gradients are kind of back in, right? When I guess, not even that long ago, maybe 6-7 years ago, gradients, I didn't even have in the class because who used gradients? So gradients have come around full circle and are super cool now, right? Or at least I think so. So where I get my gradient colors from, I'm gonna show you a cool little site. It's this site here, it's called Gradient. I love it. All it does is just show you examples of cool gradients. And yeah, once you've found one you like, let's say we click through here, okay, you can see there's a bunch of different options. Okay, I like on page 2 this one here. It's It's my favorite one. You'll probably notice it from other videos that I've made, but this is where I get my colors from. Now, to get those colors into Photoshop, the easiest way is, see down the bottom here, there's this yellow and pink. So those are the two colors, right? If you click on it, okay, that is the number you want. It's this hash, and then it's got some letters and some numbers. So just copy that on your keyboard. So on my Mac, it's Command-C to copy, or you can right-click and go to copy. Jump back into Photoshop, and in Photoshop, remember when we clicked on to change color, it's that big color bar there. Double-click the green, blue house, and this is where it goes down here. I'm gonna paste it in. I'm gonna paste everything. I don't think we need the hash. It doesn't seem to mind it at all. You can see the hashes over here. So that's an easy way to pick a color from the internet, is using these letters and numbers. Let's click OK. I'm gonna jump back into Gradient. Grab this end here, grab this. I'm gonna leave the hash off, copy it. Back to Photoshop, double click this house, grab him, paste this one. I love those colors. I'm gonna click OK. Click OK again. You can make any last adjustments, but that's it for, it doesn't really matter what it is. And we've done it for type. I'm gonna click OK, but it doesn't really matter what the layer is. There's a little adjustment we need to do for images, but if it's a logo you've brought in, or a shape from somewhere you've made in Illustrator or brought in, or drawn it with the shape tool, which we'll look in a second to do, you can just have it selected, down at Effects, and go to Gradient Overlay. Now the next thing I want to do is this image in the background, and there's a slightly different process, okay? Because first of all, if I click on background, this effects is grayed out. And this is going to happen throughout our Photoshop course, where you just, it's locked, okay? And it's called background. To unlock the background, double click background, okay? Give it a name, okay? Mine is shoes. And now it becomes unlocked, and I get to add that effects. Okay, so that's half of the thing we need to do. Now click on effects, make sure that layer is selected, and go to Gradient Overlay, just like we did before. The only trouble is, it's kind of doing exactly what happened here, but I can't see the image. So what ends up happening is you need to, we've talked about all of this stuff. It's this one here, blending mode. Okay, blending mode is a way of this gradient blending with the image itself. Okay, so click on normal, and just dissolve does nothing. Darken does something. Okay, and you're just gonna have to work your way through until you find a way, a blend that works with your particular gradient and the colors in your image. Now there's no like absolute one you should pick from this. It really depends on your image and the colors in your gradient. So it's a bit of a lottery. Okay, so click on multiply, see if that works for you. And I'm just gonna work way through until I pick something that I like. I'm gonna turn the opacity back up. Color burn, linear burn. You're just gonna watch me now go through them all. Lighten I kind of like. It's kind of got that retro 80s, but in that kind of hipstery way. It's hard to explain, right? But gradients are cool now. Lighten, I know screen's kind of a nice one. Color dodge, not so good. Okay, I'm not going to go through every single one of them because I decided I either liked hard light or I liked screen, and that's totally, sorry, lighten. That's totally just based on my gradients and my images, and I'm going to leave it there. So that's the difference between doing images and just say straight off text or shape, okay, is that first of all, you need your layer unlocked. Then you add the effect like you do normally, and just make sure when you do add your gradient, you change that blending mode. Oh, before I go, probably super important point that I haven't brought out yet is say you want to adjust this gradient now. Okay, I'll turn it off. See All Star here? You can kind of see the structure. That's my whole layer, and these are the effects. Okay, I can turn either the effect or the gradient itself off to show through that original red color. Okay, so what we can do to edit it, so to turn it off, that's all you need to do. Just leave it there. Okay, but to edit it, I'm gonna have the eyeball on, double click the word gradient overlay, double click. Okay, and you'll see it's gray here and it's got a little tick. Okay, you might be accidentally on something else, so I'm gonna untick that, make sure this is gray. Okay, and that's where you can go and make adjustments. So let's say that I don't like that anymore, so I'm going to reverse it or play with a different blending mode as well. Okay, but that's how you make adjustments. Okay, I'm probably going to turn it off and make this back to white. Okay, so text selected, my little properties panel here would tell me what color that I'm using. I clicked on it, and to get white, just as a little other thing before we go is, watch this, any of these hues, it doesn't matter. If I click, hold, and drag, and I'm dragging kind of past where I need it, because up in the top left is white, and down in the bottom left is black. So what I do is instead of trying to like, some people like just try and click in there, and you get it pretty close. But if you click, hold, and drag past, so I'm holding my mouse down and dragging it past, that assures it's white. All right, I'm going to click OK. And if you want to tidy this effects up, so I've turned it off so you can't see it, but say that you're pedantic and you've got a bit of OCD and you want to get rid of this, you can click, hold, and drag it to this trash can, and that will get rid of it. All right, so it's project time. I'd like you to practice using this one here. Okay, so I don't mind what text you use, but definitely play around with the gradient, okay, on the image. Okay, go to gradient, pick a color, pick your own colors. You can do your own colors. And I'd like to actually see it this time though. You've been following me along. What I'd like you to do is I'd love to see your own one. So dig through your files and see if you can find an image that you're happy to share. Okay, and it can be your family, it can be your house, you can take a quick photo now of yourself, okay, and I want to see what kind of gradients and stuff you're doing. And you can either post it here on this page, or you can share it with me on social media. On Instagram is Bring Your Own Laptop, okay, or on Twitter it's Dan Loves Adobe. Either way, do an image, can be this one, it can be your own one, and I'd like to see what you've done. All right, that is going to be the end of this one. Let's jump into the next video. I'll see you over. Bye. Hi there, in this video we're going to make shapes and more shapes and other shapes, and it's a rectangle with a corner on it, there's a star with another star. Oh, it is shape-tastic. Let's get in there now and learn how to do this properly in Photoshop. All right, to get started, basically we're going to be using this little menu item here. So I click, hold, and drop it down. Okay, so I just click, hold my mouse key down until I get these options. Let's start with the ellipse tool. Okay, and what we're going to do is up the top here, you can pick a fill for your ellipse. So give it a click and then pick anything you like. If you want to pick a more custom color than just the random ones in here, you can click on this little kind of rainbow icon here. You get that color picker that we've used a few times. Okay, slide the hue up until you find something you want to use. Pick this one, click OK. Cool, and you can kind of just click anywhere up here to get rid of that fill drop down. Great, so what we want to do is click, hold, and drag, okay, and you'll get kind of any old shape. So if I go to edit, step backwards, and what we want to do is, we did this with the rectangle marquee tool. Who remembers what key we hold down on our keyboard to get it to go like, to be a perfect circle? Yep, you remember, it's shift. Okay, so if I hold shift down, okay, it just kind of makes the height and width locked in. Okay, if you get it to a size and you're like, well, it's not quite right, you don't have to keep going back. You can go to edit, transform path, and go to scale. Okay, and the same thing, hold down shift on one of these edges, drag it out, and you can make it nice and big. I'm making mine super big. Something like that. When you're finished, hit return on your keyboard, otherwise it doesn't work. So hit return, yeah, that's how to draw an ellipse. The cool thing about using this particular tool here, they're called shape paths, is that they are scalable, they are vector, they can go up and down in size, no problem. Let's look at some of the other shapes. We're going to use a rectangle. It seems pretty boring, but hold on because there's some things you can do with it. So with it selected, pick a fill color. I'm going to use black in this case. There he is. Don't have that selected. Okay, so edit, step backwards. Okay, so don't worry about the color for the moment, or what you can do is, see this layers panel? You can click in this kind of like dark gray area that kind of makes sure nothing is selected. Now I can pick a fill color of black. Black even. Cool. Stroke is the line around the outside. I'm going to turn it on just to show you. So I'm going to have a white line around the outside. It's going to be, say, 3 pixels, just for an example. I don't really want a stroke, but I want to show you how it works. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a rectangle kind of about here. Cool. And you're like, yeah, that's a rectangle, Dan. You can, what you've got to see is this properties over here. The cool thing about using this particular tool is that these can be adjusted. You can see that the stroke here can be made really thick. Oh, that's too thick. Okay. You can decide where the stroke sits, which is this option, I think here. Nope, it is this option, first one. So there's the inside of the square that is across you can see either side of that square, or this one is the outside of the square. I don't want any of them. Don't like you stroke. I'm going to click on it, and I'm just clicking on the strokes, that little icon there, and see this little red line? That means no stroke, please. Okay, awesome. Other things you can do with rectangles, still not very exciting, is these corners here. So I am going, at the moment it's, yours is probably defaulted to this, where it's got a dark gray box. Watch, click it. It's not really obvious, okay, but if you have it off, so it should look like this. And what I'm going to do is you can change the one particular corner. So I'm going to do, say, 20 pixels in this corner, hit return. And you can see I've got a 20 pixel radius. It's not probably big enough for you to see. 50 pixel radius. I'm going to zoom in so we can all see it together a little easier. The person editing this video is probably like, you should have done that earlier. You've had to move around. Anyway, so a nice little trick with this is, who knows what 50 pixels is? Like, it really depends on the image size. So what I find is quite useful is, see these little icons here? Pretty much all the icons in Photoshop, you can hover above them. See this like little hand with arrows? Click, hold, and drag it to the right. You can see it goes up, and you can see my little, this guy changing over here. Drag them back to go to a square, drag them back. You can lock them together. So when you do drag them all up, they all go together. All back to 0. What I want is, I just want this one to be a little bit rounded, and we're going to reshape it later on when we do our type. It's going to be that box there eventually. A couple other things we'll do is I'm going to zoom out, Command minus, and I want to do stars up in the corner, these guys here. Okay, so stars are not tricky, but watch this. Click and hold down. They come into this one called the polygon tool. Give them a click, and by default, okay, it's going to give me a polygon. I'm not even sure what shape that is. Pentagon? I want to say pentagon. And you can change the sides up here. I can have 10 sides. And now it's something I can't name. Let's go to undo. I'm using the shortcut. So edit step backwards is this one here. It's on a Mac, it's pretty crazy. It's Command Option Z, steps backwards. On a PC, it's Control Alt Z, just kind of steps backwards. Okay, so I use that quite a bit. I'm probably going to use that from now on in the course. If you see me going backwards and undoing, I'm just going to this option here, using my sneaky shortcut. Great, so what I want to do is, I want a 5-sided star, but what I want to do is, see this little cog here? Okay, before you start drawing, click on star. Play around with the inset. 50% is going to give you a traditional star. So this one here, you can undo it and just experiment. Have a little play around with the indents by, like, I quite like this one. If you get down to like 15 and then turn the sides up to 50, you get this kind of like starburst. That's quite a handy one for, I don't know. It's how I buy my wine. Okay, I look at the label and does it have lots of these gold stickers on it? I don't even read them, but it's how I buy my wine. With this layer selected, I'm going to click on the trash to get rid of it, and I'm going to get my star. So polygon tool, sides back to 5, click on the little cog, and I'm going to say 50%. If you go to 80%, they're going to be super spiky. You can smooth the edges of it as well. Just have a little experiment. We're just going to do a traditional star. Okay, I'm going to draw it out. And if you want it straight, okay, it's our magical key that we've done. We've used it a few times now, because at the moment it's just going to be any old size. So I'm going to drag out and hold down the shift key. You see it kind of locks it into like more usable shapes. It's not straight up and down. I don't know why, but you can this way. Here we go. Eventually I got it. Okay, so hold shift and just kind of rotate it around until you get the kind of, it's locked it's into a symmetrical shape. That's what I want to say. Let's have a look at changing the color of this. So with this layer selected up the top here, I'm going to pick white. One thing is that, say this color disappears, it's probably because you're in your move tool. If you're on this layer on a move tool, it's great for moving around, but if you want to go back to shape it, okay, just have this tool selected, make sure that layer is selected, and this will pop back up. You could leave now because that's almost it for shape. So I'm going to look at some opacity because I want to recreate this kind of star effect and this thing here. So hang around. I'm actually going to draw that circle down there as well. So you can totally leave if you know how to change the opacity already. Yeah. So I want to transform this guy to make him smaller. Okay, so layer selected, edit, transform, scale. Now, what I'm going to do for the rest of this course is, that is a super long way. I'm going to use the shortcut, and it's this one here, free transform. It does a bit of all of these things. It does scale really easily. So I'm going to use Command T. Okay, you don't have to. You can come in here and use this version, but Command T is just a super good shortcut to learn. So it's Control T on a PC. So I'll hold Command T. Okay, and same thing, hold shift in the corners and I can resize it. So I want it to be about that. Hit return. I want another version of it, so I'm going to right click it and I'm going to say duplicate layer, polygon 2, click OK. And what I'm going to do is the one at the bottom probably. Okay, so this guy's on top, this guy's on the bottom. I'm going to stretch him out using my super new shortcut. Ready? Command T, and I'm going to scale it out. So if I hold shift, Okay, I can drag it out there, then I can grab anywhere but the center and try and line them back up, and that generally works. Another little shortcut I'm going to share with you. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape. As escape is the I didn't mean it. I'm going to go back to where it was. So I've still got two stars on top of each other. This bottom one though, I'm going to hit my Command T, Control T on a PC. Holding Shift makes that come from the top left, okay? But if I hold Shift and Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, so look down your keyboard, hold Shift, and if you're on a Mac, hold Shift and Option. If you're on a PC, hold Shift and Alt. And what it does is, can you see the difference? It resizes from the center. I don't want to like bamboozle you too much with shortcuts, so you don't have to. You can just line it up. Use Shift and just line it up, but I want to make mine a bit bigger than it was, about there. Cool. Nothing really happens except this bottom one here. I want to lower the opacity. See the opacity slider here? I'm just going to lower it down until I find something I like. And I'm actually going to use the transform. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And we've got drop shadows on that one. That's going to make it look nicer later on, but we're not there yet. Yeah, if I want to I'm going to resize this top one as well. Actually, I want both to go a little bit smaller. Holding down both those keys. Yep. I'm going to do the same thing for the circle. Okay, so with this guy selected, my ellipse, I'm going to duplicate him. So right click, duplicate layer. You should give them a name. I'm going to be honest with you. I never bother unless I'm sending it to somebody that I need to impress. Okay, and I'm going to my Command T. I'm going to grab one of these side bits, hold Shift and Option on my Mac. Make it a bit bigger. And what I'm probably going to do is, I've got the big one on top. I'm going to put it underneath with it selected. I'm going to go over here and pick a new color. We're going to look at specific colors that might match the background in a later tutorial, but that's what I'm doing. So this guy's on top, this guy's underneath, and he's just a little bit bigger. You could play with the opacity of this one as well, because it looks kind of cool. Black bar here, I lower the opacity of lots of them just to kind of, I don't know, start showing through things. It's kind of cool when there's a bit of transparency going. Last thing I want to do is I want to get this, I want it to be longer. So I'm going to just use my Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, and just drag it out. And the cool thing about live shapes, can you see that corner is still preserved? It doesn't matter how long, it doesn't kind of distort. Okay, so I'm going to just drag it so it's off. Even past the edge, it doesn't matter. Enter on my keyboard to finish it, and I'm going to use it as a kind of a off page into the bleed type box. One other thing I want is a little circle down here. Okay, and I'm going to be lazy. Instead of drawing out an ellipse and giving it a color, I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to duplicate him. Yes, I'm going to give this one a name because you're watching me. Let's go for small circle. Okay, and I'm going to transform it, holding down my shortcut keys, grabbing anywhere but the center, and it's going to go down here somewhere. Okay. Ish. Hit return on your keyboard. That's our epic shape building video done. Let's get into the next video where we start adding type, and then we'll do drop shadows. Loads more to do, but let's do it in a following video. Bye now. Hi there, in this video we're going to pick some colors for our shapes. I'm going to show you a cool place like this to get some ideas for colors. I'm also going to show you how to steal colors from an image. Let's get into it now and get started. Welcome back, and first up, if you can work on the file that you've worked on in the last tutorial. If you are just jumping into this particular one, if you go to File, Open, and in the file called Exercise Files, Shapes, there's this one called Coloring Shapes. Okay, open that one up. That's where we're at now. Okay, so we just randomly picked colors, and they don't quite suit the background as much as I want. So I'm going to show you kind of two awesome things to do with color. This should probably have been in the color section, but it's hard to know, like it's hard to separate them all out into sections too much. So we are going to look at just how to get nice colors. Like I get stuck in like, I'm using like that gradient there, I've used probably on every second job in the last 6 months, just because I like those colors and it's hard to break out of your color schemes. If you look at any of my designs, it's either this green, that kind of, I want to say, I don't know, mandarin-y peach color, and kind of baby blue. All my work's done like that. So the way I get out of that comfort zone and find other colors, the nicest way is under Window, and it's under Extensions, and I don't know why they hide it. So it's such a cool little thing. So Window, Extensions, Adobe Color Themes. Now you need to be connected to the net for this to work. Okay, and this little panel opens up. Now the initial one's a bit boring. It's this Explore one that is quite exciting. Okay, well, exciting for me. Can you see here? It's nothing but just a bunch of cool colors. Okay, scrolling down, there's some really cool stuff in here. You can do searches in here. If I need something from the 80s, hit return. Okay, it'll do a search, and that's some pretty successful 80s colors. Type in cafe, bank, actually popular brand. Like, I'm from Auckland in New Zealand, right? And weirdly, if you type in Auckland, there's universities, there's council colors. So you can find all sorts in there. If I can find obscure things from an Auckland council, then you can probably find maybe your brand and your corporate colors in there. I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm just going to hit search. Actually, I'm going to go create, and then back to explore. And yeah, like just some cool colors, right? You can say most popular this month or all time. I'm going to go to all time, and yeah, some cool colors. To use them, the best way to use them is, say you decide on this color here, okay? Panthera? Click on this little dotted line and say add to swatches. Ignore this libraries thing, we'll look at him later on. Close that down as well. And now what we can do is we can click on my ellipse. And if you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, often you still need to go back to any of these path tools, okay? And you can use the fill up here. I'm using a newer version of Photoshop, so ellipse, we can change it here as well. So click on it, and you'll see down the bottom here, those are the 5 color swatches that we've added. So I can go you. And it's just a way of, I guess, picking colors that are nice. Same with this ellipse color here. I'm gonna turn the opacity back up, and I'm just gonna pick one of the colors. It's still not quite working with my colors in the background here, but what you'll find is it's just a neat way of, yeah, busting out and getting color options. Say you're doing some logos or some designs or web work, and you just need to have like 3 color options for the client. Go to Adobe Color Themes and just find some new stuff. All right, I'm waffling. Next thing I want to show you though is how to really kind of steal colors from an image. And that can quite often be a nice way to kind of definitely match the colors because, yeah, just is. So I'm going to have this front ellipse selected. Okay, I'm going to click on this and nothing really needs to happen. You need to click on this hue slider, and we're not really going to use this, just move them out of the way. And then see the little eyedropper? We can start working through this. The trouble is it doesn't update this automatically. It's picking the color, which is cool, but it's not going through and like, let's click OK. Now it will work. So I've picked the pink from it. I'm going to grab the green. Same thing, click on the color swatch, grab the hue slider and just move out here, and I'm going to pick one of the yellows. Or in this case, kind of an orange. Now, are the colors working for me? I'm not that happy with them. So what I tend to do, right, is say this color here, I can use my same trick, pick a different color. Say I pick something from here, something a bit warmer. And I'm not like, what I want to do is maybe just drag this little circle down a bit to get maybe something that is close to it, but maybe darker, okay, darker that's being used in there. So it's just, yeah, you might find that works good for you. I'm gonna click on this one, do the same thing. I liked that color. I just want it to be like a darker version of it. You just drag it straight down, okay? And yeah, I've made it real ugly. What I'm probably gonna do is I'm going to play around now. You can leave. We've learned our 2 little tricks, okay? Remember, window, extensions, Adobe Color Themes, pretty cool. And you can use the eyedropper tool. You just need to have it selected and start stealing colors by clicking on this, and you can just pick colors from there using that. Great explanation, Dan. Let's hit cancel. I'm now just gonna mess about picking colors that I like. You can hang around if you like. What I want to do is I don't like this kind of like mud brown color, poo brown. Okay, with it selected, I'm going to go to this. You don't have to click from just here. I'm going to click on this one. So now the circles are the same colors, but I want this top one to be like this green. I like that green. I randomly picked it, but I think it kind of complements this all very nicely. Eyedropper tool, click OK. Yeah, I'm happy enough with it. One thing though, if you're dealing with corporate colors, you can click on this and just type them in here. So hopefully you've got like a corporate spec manual somewhere. Ask the marketing department. If you are the marketing department and you have no idea what the color is, import the logo and just use the same thing. Use the eyedropper to steal the color from the logo. It's not exact, but could work. Or type in the RGB colors or the CMYK colors if you can find them. I'm going to hit cancel. I am done. That is the end of the video. Let's get into the next one. All right, bye now.